"You're terminated." The words lingered in the boardroom like a heavy fog. I stared at Trevor Williams, the CEO of Holograph Technologies, then at the 12 board members seated around the polished oak table. No one looked back at me. I'm Joel, 49 years old, and until 5 minutes ago, I was the chief technology officer of the company I'd helped create from scratch. 15 years of my life dedicated to servers, programming, and sleepless nights fixing systems that kept this place operational. Trevor wore that self-satisfied smirk he always had when he thought he'd outsmarted someone. The same look he flashed when he claimed credit for my system security upgrade last year. Or when he revealed the merger with Foxridge Solutions without warning me, they planned to dismantle our entire tech framework. "I suggest you explain to the shareholders why the whole system will reboot in 10 minutes, I said, placing my access badge and laptop on the table. The room fell silent. Trevor's grin wavered for a moment before returning in full. "What are you talking about?" he asked. I stood, adjusting my tie. "The automated maintenance routine I set up last month. Every 30 days, the system initiates a full reset and requires manual approval from the CTO to restart. That's me. Or rather, that asterisk was asterisk me." Board member Patricia Hayes shifted uncomfortably. "What exactly does that mean?" she asked. "It means," I said, glancing at my watch, "in about 9 minutes every server, database, and piece of software running this company will shut down. And without my access codes, it stays offline." Trevor's face drained of color. "You're bluffing." I headed for the door, pausing for one last look back. "The pitch to Veltri Enterprises starts in an hour, $30 million deal. You might want to figure out how to get the systems back online." Panic erupted as I reached the elevator. Shouts echoed through the boardroom doors. Someone was already calling it. Another voice demanded the legal team. Trevor was yelling about lawsuits and criminal charges. 8 minutes. The elevator doors shut, and I descended to the parking garage. My truck sat in the same spot I'd parked in for 15 years. The same spot Trevor tried to give to his cousin last month, claiming senior staff deserved better parking rights. I slid behind the wheel and waited. 7 minutes. My phone buzzed. I'd built Holograph Technologies from the ground up. It started in Trevor's basement in 2009, coding for small businesses needing basic inventory tools. Trevor handled sales. I managed everything else. We were partners back then, or so I believed. The first fracture came 3 years ago when we secured the city contract with Fort Wayne. I engineered the entire traffic control system. 8 months of 16-hour days ensuring every signal, sensor, and backup protocol was flawless. At the mayor's press conference, Trevor stood alone at the podium, boasting about his team's asterisk groundbreaking solution. I should have spoken up then. Should have walked away when he started calling my ideas our vision asterisk and my code company assets. But I believed in what we were creating. Believed hard work would prove itself. My wife, Kelly, saw it before I did. She'd watch me come home exhausted, venting about meetings where Trevor dismissed my ideas only to pitch them as his own a week later. She'd hear me complain about him hiring unqualified friends for key roles, how he made promises to clients our systems couldn't keep. "He's exploiting you," she said over dinner 6 months ago. "And when he's done, he'll discard you like yesterday's trash." I defended him, said he was just stressed by the board, that the company's rapid growth was overwhelming, that things would calm down after the busy season. The red flags were everywhere. Trevor began excluding me from board meetings, claiming they were high-level strategy discussions that didn't need technical input. He hired an assistant CTO, Brandon Miller, straight out of college, supposedly to ease my workload. Brandon spent most of his time in Trevor's office, studying the systems I'd built, asking about protocols I'd never documented. 2 weeks ago, I caught Brandon copying files from my secure directories. When I confronted him, he said Trevor had approved it for backup purposes. When I asked Trevor, he fed me a story about preparing for an IT audit. Last week, Trevor started probing about my access codes, saying the board was worried about security measures, wanting multiple people to authorize critical operations. I said I'd consider it. I should have seen it coming, should have realized Brandon wasn't there to assist me but to replace me. Should have noticed they were cataloging every system I'd built, every line of code I'd written, preparing for my exit. But I trusted him. After 15 years of partnership, I still thought Trevor Williams was my friend. 5 minutes left. The call I'd anticipated came right on cue. Trevor's name flashed on my screen. "Joel, we need to talk." No, we don't, I replied. Listen, maybe I was too quick in there. The board's been pressuring me, pushing for changes, talking about external consultants. I was trying to shield you. Shield me. The same excuse he'd used for months. The same justification he gave when he took credit for my work, when he hired Brandon behind my back, when he cut me out of decisions about systems I'd created. The reset happens in 4 minutes, Trevor. Okay, look, what do you want? We can figure something out. Equity, a consulting role, a severance deal. I nearly laughed. 3 minutes ago, he'd sacked me in front of the board like I was some junior employee caught pilfering supplies. Now he wanted to bargain. I want you to understand something, I said. For 15 years, I've worked nights and weekends building systems that made you wealthy. I've cleaned up your messes, fixed problems you caused, and watched you take credit for my work. Joel, I'm not done. You brought Brandon in to learn my role so you could fire me. You've been planning this for months, maybe longer. The one thing you didn't account for was this. 3 minutes. Through the garage's concrete walls, I heard car doors slamming, footsteps racing. Someone was likely sprinting to the server room, thinking they could override the shutdown manually. They couldn't. I'd learned years ago to build redundancies within redundancies, safeguarding the company's data even from the company itself. What do you want? Trevor asked again, his voice tinged with desperation. I want you to remember this moment, I said. I want you to remember that for 15 years I was loyal to you. I believed in this company, believed in what we were building together, and you threw it away because you were scared of looking weak in front of the board. 2 minutes. The Veltri Enterprises pitch starts in 58 minutes, I continued. $30 million. Without the demo system, you've got nothing to present. Without the client database, you don't even have their contact details. Voices shouted in the background, keyboards clacking frantically. How do I fix this? Trevor asked. 1 minute. You don't, I said and ended the call. I started my truck and drove toward the exit. In 60 seconds, every light in the Holograph Technologies building would go out. Every computer would power down. Every phone system, security camera, and piece of equipment keeping the company running would stop. And for the first time in 15 years, Trevor Williams would have to solve a problem without me. The outage lasted precisely 4 hours and 37 minutes. I knew because I was at Brennan's Diner on Coliseum Boulevard, sipping coffee and watching the news on the TV above the counter. Local tech firm hit by technical issues, scrolled across the screen as a reporter stood outside the Holograph building, interviewing confused staff sent home early. My phone rang non-stop. Trevor called 17 times. Brandon called 8. Patricia Hayes from the board called twice. I let them all go to voicemail. At 3:15 p.m., the building's lights flickered back on. I knew they'd managed to manually restart the core systems, likely by pulling backup drives from emergency storage and rebuilding the network from the ground up. It would take days to fully restore operations. At 3:47 p.m., an unfamiliar number called. Mr. Turner, this is David Foster from Foster, Collins and Associates. I represent Holograph Technologies. We need to discuss your actions today. A lawyer. Trevor was already preparing a legal offensive. I haven't done anything illegal, I said. Sabotage is a crime, Mr. Turner. Intentionally disrupting systems, halting business operations, causing financial damage to the company. The district attorney might take interest in your actions. I nearly smiled. They thought legal threats could bully me, just as Trevor had used job security threats for months. I implemented a security measure to protect company data, I said. The system functioned as designed. If Holograph Technologies no longer employs qualified staff to manage its technology, that's not my issue. You deliberately ensured only you could restore operations. I ensured the CTO had to approve system restarts. I was the CTO until about 2:30 p.m. today. The lawyer paused. Mr. Turner, you're underestimating the gravity of your situation. The Veltri Enterprises contract was lost because of you. $30 million in revenue. Multiple clients faced service interruptions. Damages could reach hundreds of millions. Hundreds of millions. Trevor must have inflated the numbers to intimidate me. The contract was lost because Trevor Williams fired his CTO 10 minutes before a critical presentation, I said. Bad management isn't my responsibility. We have records showing you set up unauthorized access restrictions, implemented shutdown protocols without board approval, and withheld critical operational information. Now I saw it. They weren't just threatening criminal charges. They were preparing a civil lawsuit claiming I'd sabotaged the company. Trevor wanted to ruin me financially, ensure I could never challenge him. Document this, I said. Any legal action against me will lead to full disclosure of all holograph technology security flaws to the public. Every backdoor, every unpatched system, every shortcut Trevor approved against my advice. Let's see how many clients want to work with a company whose former CTO testifies their systems are fundamentally insecure. The line went silent. You're threatening to leak proprietary information. I'm promising to tell the truth about the company's technical capabilities under oath if needed. I hung up and ordered another coffee. 20 minutes later, Trevor called again. Joel, we need to meet. Face to face, no lawyers, no board, just us. Why? Because this is spiraling, because we were friends. Because there's a way to resolve this that works for everyone. I considered it. Trevor was rattled, realizing legal threats wouldn't erase his problems. He needed something from me and was finally negotiating from weakness. Brennan's Diner on Coliseum Boulevard, I said. 1 hour. I'll be there. But I knew he wouldn't come alone. Trevor arrived 43 minutes later with Brandon Miller in tow. I watched them through the diner's window, Trevor pacing the parking lot while Brandon sat in the passenger seat of a sleek black BMW I didn't recognize. Likely a company car, another perk Trevor had approved for his new protege. They sat across from me in a corner booth, Trevor looking worn, Brandon avoiding my gaze. The kid was nervous, probably worried about what his role in today's chaos might cost him. Coffee, I offered. Trevor shook his head. Let's get to it. What will it take to end this? End what? Don't play dumb, Joel. The legal threats, the system vulnerabilities, all of it. Name your terms. I leaned back. You think this is about money? Everything's about money. That was Trevor Williams in a sentence. Everything boiled down to profit and loss. He'd never grasped that some people worked for more than a paycheck. Tell me, I said, how long were you planning to fire me? Trevor glanced at Brandon, then back. It wasn't personal. How long? 6 months, maybe 8. The board wanted fresh talent, cost-cutting. Brandon's salary is 60% of yours. 8 months. While I was grinding overtime for the Veltri Enterprises deal, Trevor was plotting my replacement. While I trained Brandon, thinking I was mentoring a colleague, he was studying my job to take it. Did you ever plan to keep me as a consultant? I asked. At first, yes, but then you started questioning access protocols, making noise about documentation. The board thought you might become a liability. A liability. Because I wanted to secure the systems I'd built. Because I'd challenged Trevor's technical decisions in front of clients. Show him the contract, Trevor told Brandon. Brandon pulled a folder from his jacket and slid it across the table. Inside was a consulting agreement offering $50,000 for 90 days of technical transition support. 50,000, I said, for 15 years of expertise. It's generous given the circumstances, Trevor replied. I skimmed the contract. Standard non-disclosure terms, non-compete clauses, and a section requiring me to provide all system documentation and access credentials developed during my tenure. They wanted everything. Every password, every backdoor, every safeguard I'd built. In return, they'd pay what Trevor probably spent on client dinners in a month. There's a flaw in this, I said. What's that? You assume I want to work with you. Trevor's jaw tightened. Joel, be reasonable. You're jobless. You're facing potential criminal charges, and your industry reputation will be ruined when today's events leak. My reputation. Sabotage doesn't exactly boost a resume. I smiled and closed the folder. Trevor, do you know who called me this morning? He looked puzzled. What? At 7:30 a.m. before I reached the office, James Parker from Veltri Enterprises called. He wanted to discuss a role as their new IT director. They've been tracking my work for months, impressed with the security measures I designed for municipal contracts. Brandon's eyes widened. Trevor paled. The job pays double what you paid me, I continued, plus equity and a signing bonus. You're lying, Trevor said, his voice shaky. I showed him my phone's call log. 7 missed calls from Veltri Enterprises between 7:30 a.m. and 2 o'clock p.m., all from James Parker. He called again during your board meeting, I said. Left a voicemail asking if I was open to opportunities. Funny thing, he already knew I was leaving Holograph. Said he'd heard rumors of management changes. Trevor's face was ashen. That's impossible. Is it? Who's been handling the Veltri negotiations for 6 months? The realization hit him like a sledgehammer. Patricia Hayes, the board member pushing hardest for operational shifts, was also the former CEO of Veltri's main rival. She'd been feeding Veltri information for months, detailing Holograph's capabilities and who drove them. Patricia orchestrated this, Trevor muttered. She's been recruiting me since January, I confirmed. Quiet talks at industry events, subtle questions about my satisfaction with leadership, hints at better prospects. I turned her down because I thought I owed you loyalty. Brandon stared at the table, likely realizing his new role wasn't as stable as he'd hoped. If Veltri poached Holograph's key tech talent, they could undercut every contract and steal the client base. But today changed my mind, I continued. When you fired me in front of the board, you showed that 15 years of partnership meant nothing. So I called James Parker back. Trevor grabbed his phone. I need to call Patricia. Need to know what she's planning. Too late. What do you mean? I checked my watch. At 5 p.m. today, Veltri Enterprises is announcing the acquisition of Holograph Technologies' intellectual property portfolio. They've bought the rights to our traffic control software, municipal database systems, and client integration protocols. That's impossible. We own those systems. You own the code, I own the patents. The silence was deafening. Trevor's mouth moved soundlessly. Brandon looked ill. The patents, Trevor finally croaked, filed in my name over 5 years. Every major system upgrade, every security protocol, every innovative line of code. My lawyer had assured me that as the inventor, I held intellectual property rights, regardless of employment contracts. It was true. My attorney had advised me years ago to file patents on my key innovations, partly for protection, partly for pride. I never thought I'd need them as leverage against my own company. The traffic control system alone is worth $8 million in licensing fees, I continued. Municipal database integration, another $12 million. Security protocols, client systems, redundancies, Veltri values the portfolio at $37 million. More than the contract Trevor lost by firing me. More than Holograph's annual revenue, enough to cripple his company if a competitor controlled the technology. You can't do this, Trevor said. I already did. Signed the licensing deal an hour ago. Veltri gets exclusive rights to my patents for 5 years. In exchange, I get a director role, company equity, and 20% of licensing revenue. Trevor gaped at me as if I'd sprouted horns. It was the same stunned look he'd had when I mentioned the system shut down earlier. The expression of a man who'd gravely misjudged his moves. What happens to Holograph? Brandon asked softly. That's up to Trevor, I replied. Veltri Enterprises is open to negotiating a licensing deal to let you keep using my patents. For a price. How much? 55% of gross revenue. The figure landed like a guillotine. The bankruptcy filing hit 6 weeks later. I was in my new office at Veltri Enterprises, reviewing system designs for a municipal contract in Phoenix, when my assistant shared the news. Holograph Technologies had filed for Chapter 11, citing crippling operational costs and the loss of critical intellectual property rights. Trevor had fought back hard. He'd hired 3 law firms, contested my patent claims, and even tried to have me charged with corporate sabotage. Nothing held up. The patents were airtight, the licensing agreement was bulletproof, and my exit from Holograph was entirely his doing. He'd also attempted to run the company without my systems. For 2 weeks, Brandon and a team of freelancers tried to rebuild the infrastructure from the ground up, writing new code to replace my patented algorithms. The outcome was catastrophic. Client databases collapsed, security measures failed, and the traffic control system for Fort Wayne went offline for 36 hours, plunging the city into chaos. Lawsuits piled up quickly. Fort Wayne sued for breach of contract. 3 other municipal clients canceled their deals. Veltri Enterprises, now equipped with my reliable systems, swooped in to secure every abandoned contract. Patricia Hayes stepped down from the Holograph board 2 days before the bankruptcy filing. She'd already taken a consulting role with Veltri, assisting with the integration of acquired assets and transitioning former Holograph clients to new systems. Brandon Miller lasted 3 months before Trevor had to cut him loose. The kid wasn't equipped for the role he'd been hired for, and without my systems to manage, there wasn't enough technical work to justify his paycheck. He ended up at a small startup in Indianapolis, earning half of what Trevor had promised. The final nail came when the bankruptcy court approved the asset sale. Veltri bought Holograph's client list, office equipment, and remaining intellectual property for less than Trevor's legal bills. The company I'd spent 15 years building was dismantled in a single afternoon. I didn't attend the auction. Instead, I spent that Thursday morning with my new team, working on a security overhaul for the Indianapolis airport. Meaningful work, technical challenges that made a difference, projects where credit went to those who actually built them. Kelly met me for lunch at a cafe near Veltry's offices. She'd stood by me through the entire shift, never doubting my choices, never suggesting I could have handled it differently. "Any regrets?" she asked over soup and sandwiches. I thought about it. Trevor Williams had shattered our partnership, betrayed 15 years of trust, and tried to claim my life's work as his own. But his actions had also liberated me from a situation that was slowly draining my love for the work I cherished. "None," I said. She smiled. "Good, because James Parker called this morning. He wants to talk about expanding your team." At Veltry, my ideas were respected, my contributions acknowledged, and my name was on every patent filing. The signing bonus had cleared our mortgage. The stock options would secure our retirement. The salary was enough for Kelly to pursue her painting full-time, a dream she'd held for years. Trevor Williams, meanwhile, was working as a regional sales manager for a software firm in Cleveland. Industry contacts told me he was earning about 30% of his old salary, living in a modest apartment, and telling anyone who'd listen that his former partner had stolen his company. Brandon Miller had landed a job debugging outdated systems for a firm specializing in legacy software. Patricia Hayes was earning more as a consultant than she ever had as a board member, guiding other companies through acquisition strategies. The truth was clear. Choices have consequences, and eventually everyone pays for theirs. Sometimes it just takes longer than you'd think.